Hey everyone, my name is Keith Miller. Welcome to Aligning the Heart to Open the Mind. I'm the host of the Soul of Life podcast, and that's where you're viewing this on either Facebook or YouTube. I'm really glad that you can join us today. The Soul of Life podcast is a project that I've been working on for a few months, just started season 2 today. And it's where psychology comes to life in science, athletics, the arts, culture, and spirituality. I've been a social worker for 20 years and a healer, and I started the podcast because I wanted to kind of get in touch and bring people together who have gotten off of their treadmills, people who are able to tap into kind of who they are, their being. And that is really why I'm starting this weekly free meditation that you can find here in the Soul of Life channel, because I wanted to share with you the practice that I've been sharing with my clients as a psychotherapist for many years, over 13 years, using IFS therapy. It's a way of working with our parts, getting to know our psyche and how it works together, or sometimes doesn't work together, and changing our inner experience. And the whole point of me starting the Soul of Life podcast was to really help bring attention to the idea that we have this being. Of course, we are human beings, but most of the time we're actually human doers. I don't know about you, but I find myself constantly engaged in the outside world, running from point A to point B, schlepping the kids around. If you've got kids, you know how demanding that is, or the demands of your job. You end up having to be basically used as a tool. Your job is to do something and to make something happen, to manufacture something, come up with ideas, create deliverables and whatnot. And even when it comes to our body, the way we go through life often is using our body. And of course, that's the way it's designed to be used. But that changes our experience of ourselves and our experience of who we are. If we're just constantly doing things, it can feel like a treadmill. And so I wanted to offer this very brief introduction to IFS, which is a fairly complex mode of psychology. But to give the basic kind of idea of what IFS does, and then combine that with mindfulness and mind-body skills, mindfulness skills. So I'm excited to do this and to do this live with you. I don't know about you, but there's plenty of meditations out there where you can just tune into some recording at your free time, and that's great. But I think there's something really cool about doing this together, knowing that there's people I see joining, more than a dozen people right now. And it's great that happy to see you here and glad that you're here. You'll see comments on the side if you're in Facebook. Obviously, there's a chat there, and you can also put comments on YouTube, and you'll see some questions popping up. You might just share with people, if you're comfortable doing that, what brings you here? What would you like to learn? Because I think it helps us to see others with us. And that's why I wanted to do this live and not just make another recording. I think over time it becomes helpful to know that we're in this with other people. Our brains are designed to be influenced and moved by each other. And there's a saying that one of my favorite teachers, Dr. Daniel Siegel, likes to say, that we belong to each other. And that's not something I ever heard in the field of psychology. I heard that a lot in spiritual places, like in church growing up. I'm my brother's keeper, or something like that. But to hear it coming from psychology more and more as we know about interpersonal neurobiology, that we, in fact, belong to each other, that our brain and our brain body, our entire being is designed to be in connection with others. So I'm glad that we're doing this together. Obviously, we'll be doing some connecting to ourselves, and it's a solitary act of meditation that starts that off. The format here is 10 minutes of me doing a bit of an introduction, which I'll get to here, followed by 15 minutes of a centering meditation, then 5 minutes of Q&A. So if you have questions, please go ahead and put that right in the chat, and I'll get to it at the end. I really hope that you say anything that's on your mind. There's no bad question. I may give a bad answer, but there's no such thing as a bad question. What brings you here? Just want to ask you to focus on that for a moment and notice where you are. Obviously, our interaction here there's an element of doing. There's a transactional element to what we're doing. But where are you as you're here, right? You realize you can be sitting here, but you might be somewhere else. So I think you'll find this to be helpful if you want to feel more calm and less anxious, or if you've done meditation before but want to deepen that. And maybe you're skeptical of meditation. That's fine. I'm pretty skeptical of it myself, and I've been doing it for more than a dozen years. I think it's healthy. So the nervous system, I want to talk about this one concept today. Nervous system has two branches, right? And some of this is review for you, but the sympathetic nervous system that gets us going, that's our arousal, our alert system. Fight and flight is in that. And then the parasympathetic system, which is relaxing, right? Coming down. Or even on the extreme end, the freeze response, kind of the what we call the dorsal vagal response, kind of just that sinking feeling in your gut. And eventually, if people are scared enough, they pass out, right? That's the freeze response. So two branches, sympathetic, doing, parasympathetic, kind of like relaxing and just being there. So we are going to talk about the middle of that today. And I wanted to share with you how self, this concept that IFS has about self, which is our higher consciousness, we can think of it that way, or I like to call it the orchestra conductor, actually has a parallel, I think, in when we think about the branches of the nervous system. And I don't hear this taught, there's a funny word. I don't hear this taught a lot in IFS work, but there's a parallel to, working with our parts, being able to be aware of our awareness, that is mindfulness, be aware of parts of us. Like, for example, I'm in, kind of using my teaching parts right now. Obviously, it's a skill set that I'm embodying in order to perform this task. Now, I have other parts of me that have been put aside to do this. I just ate a piece of chocolate. So there's parts of me that sustain my life in other ways, and those are off to the side. Well, the self, as we think of it as the orchestra conductor, it's kind of the center, and it can interact with all the parts. And a lot of times we don't have access to that self-awareness, and we simply blend with our parts. We simply go through life doing, or if you're familiar with Dr. Siegel's wheel of awareness, we kind of operate on the rim of our awareness, constantly kind of taken over by our feelings, taken over by our thoughts. We are our thoughts, which is really only half true, right? We are much more than just our thoughts. We're much more than any one part of us that may present at a given moment. So we can interact with our parts and get them to unblend from us. So unblending is a key concept in IFS. We focus on them, we find them, and these are some F words. I think there's actually 6 of them, but I focus on 3. Find the parts of you. What is it? How do you know it's there? Well, is there a feeling you feel in your body? Is it a thought? Are you not in your body? Maybe you're in kind of fantasy, abstract thinking. Find it, focus on it. That means bring your attention to it. And that's a wonderful, wonderful skill that shows up in mindfulness all over the place when you hear that taught. Focus on it. That means narrow your attention. That means tune out other things. It means if you're an orchestra conductor, you're saying, I want to hear from this one section. And that means I'm going to not listen to this other section. So you're doing a little direction. It's an executive function of the brain. And then a third F, at least for today, we'll stop here. The third F would be kind of flesh it out. Excuse me. What is it doing? Follow it. I like to use the third F as follow, kind of go along with it. Notice what it's doing. Align yourself with it and see where it's going. So this observational capacity of the mind is what begins to be elicited when we find our parts, focus on it, and then flesh it out or follow. And so from that point on, we can begin to unblend. We notice that as we're getting to know and explore these parts of us, we can become aware of so much more. It's like the lens of the camera, the aperture just widens. And now we begin to realize, oh, yeah, this was the feeling I was noticing first, but now I have another feeling. And it kind of makes me frustrated that I have this first feeling. So we have kind of if you're trained in EFT work, it's the primary emotion maybe, or secondary and tertiary or something like that. But we have feelings about our feelings. That's the whole point. And that's called natural multiplicity in the IFS world. And I want to refer people to my podcast interview with Dr. Richard Schwartz, because I think that's really informative. If you want to learn more, there's plenty out there about IFS. And so we find that when we do this activity, find the part, focus on it, maybe follow it. And there's a few other steps here later, but when we begin to do that act even befriending. There's another F somewhere in there, the F of befriending. These qualities begin to show up in our body and in our mind. Calmness, so that our thoughts, perhaps, maybe they're not changed, but they begin to slow down, and we can begin to sort out and separate them. Maybe we feel more courageous. We all of a sudden we were feeling overwhelmed, and as we slow down and notice the different parts that are at work inside of us, and become more grounded in our body, then we maybe feel courage to, the world isn't going to end or something. We can move forward. We feel compassionate. And there's a whole bunch of other C words that emerge. So calm, courageous, compassionate, connected, clear, curious, creative, and I think I said confident, but it's, confident, courageous, similar. So all those qualities, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm teaching this, because it keeps me coming back to it all the time. Being able to access those qualities in the middle of feeling maybe intense emotions. Maybe the emotions don't necessarily change, but we feel differently holding them. It's like if you give me a heavy, heavy bag of bricks or something. I don't know why you'd give me a heavy bag of bricks, but you gave me a heavy bag of something, and I had to hold it by my pinky finger. Well, that would be impossible, probably, but very painful if it all landed there at once. As I begin to notice more of me and more of you, then I maybe have more connection points. Maybe I notice I can use my legs. I can get underneath this thing. I can share it with you. I can just pick up part of it. There's so many options when we are not constrained by that sympathetic response of the nervous system, which, hey, is there for us. Our fight, flight, and freeze response is always there for us, but it's very quick. And it often gets into grooves of reacting. It kind of reacts automatically. So to me, the next few moments here, I think our work together is noticing and getting underneath those automatic thoughts that you're having. And I'm going to begin to ask you about your day, how your day is going, and kind of where you're at right now. This is like a real-time thing. And this is the benefit of not doing a recorded meditation, so to speak. But, think of questions. If they come up to you, I want to encourage you to do the meditation here and kind of stay in it. But if you have a question, it's okay to pop out and put that on the chat so I can at least have some ideas of what people are getting from this and, what people need to hear more from this. So as we begin the meditation for the next 10 or 15 minutes, there's going to be 3 parts to the meditation. And the first part is really just noticing the senses. And I'm going to prompt you with this. And the second part will be finding the part of you that you might want to focus on today. And I'll help you with that. And we'll follow those 3 steps, the 3 Fs. Find it, focus on it, and follow it. I mean, maybe you get to befriend it, and maybe you get to actually have a conversation with it. But and by the way, this process is so imaginative, and that is not a mistake. Our parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes we think of it as kind of the right brain, even though that's a bit of a mythology, the right and left brain. It's a helpful metaphor to think of the circuit of the right brain is activated. That calming parasympathetic nervous system is activated more by imagination, which, by the way, is the same as empathy. If I have to empathize with you, I have to imagine what you're feeling. That can begin to calm us down. And, poetry, imagery, arts, all of that is in the imaginative right brain, so to speak. And so that's what we're going to be cueing in here during the meditation. And then part 3 will be kind of opening up space. And we find the part, we focus on it, and then we might ask it to step aside. Okay, just like an orchestra conductor. Thank you, I've done some work with you. Now could you step aside? And I'm going to see what else is there. So this does get more complex. I think, like I've mentioned in the preview to this, that there is, this is typically only introduced in psychotherapy. It is taught in some seminars, but, generally speaking, there's some things that may come up that may be more complex for you than can be handled in a meditation. And that's okay. But I would encourage you to have someone to speak to, whether it's a therapist or a good friend that just knows how to listen and be there for you. If something comes up today that, doesn't feel settled by the end of our time together. Okay, so find a comfortable place And bring your attention inside. That can look many different ways. You might just close your eyes. I think that's the simplest way to do it. I'm going to keep my eyes open because it can be a little funky to look at somebody with their eyes closed for a long time. But notice what's happening around you in the room. And there's no agenda here. You're simply being invited to notice where you are, the room, obviously some form of a computer or a device that's here. And I'm here with you in that sense. But beyond that, what else do you notice? The sounds. Listen to the sounds. Notice how you're sitting. So you're postured, and without judgment, just allowing what is already happening to continue to happen. You're just following along. You might make adjustments as you notice things that get your attention. Now notice your skin, the awareness of temperature, pressure, smoothness of the fabric of your clothes. From your very tips of your toes all the way to your top, to the top of your head, notice all the skin on your body, almost like an antenna. It can receive all this information, and just allow yourself to notice for a moment what's coming in. And now you may notice your sense of smell and taste. Those are senses we don't often notice unless there's a problem or unless it's something we're doing, like eating. So this can be very interesting, just without an agenda. It's like you're popping into an old friend's house. Hey, why are you here? No reason, just checking in. Notice your sense of smell and taste. And you may be aware of the sense of light if your eyes are open, of course, but if your eyes are closed, it's even more interesting. Notice the quality of the light as it passes through your eyelids, takes on the color of the blood passing through capillaries in your eyelids. There's so much to notice when we slow down. And now you may begin to notice perhaps sensations that you're feeling in and around your body. The sense of awareness inside our body, what we call proprioception. Feelings in our gut, feelings in our chest, the movement of things that are involuntary to us, our breath. It's always there, your breath, every moment. And so just for the next few moments, take some delight in your breath, following your breath. So much of our life is consumed by thinking about what comes next. And even though we know our next breath is coming, I want you to take the next few breaths with open awareness, as if each breath is brand new and happening for the first time. A little bit deeper as you breathe in, maybe to the count of 4 or 5. And deeper on your exhale, maybe to the count of 6 or 8. Slowing the breath. There's no place to go. You are here where you need to be. Now in the next in-breath, you may imagine that you're breathing in everything that you need, trusting that your body knows exactly what to do with everything you're breathing in. The miracle of that, almost like you're breathing in a white mist. Breathing in, and on your breath out, releasing, letting go of everything your body doesn't need, trusting the earth, all the elements that support you, that give you life, to take that, what you might imagine as a gray mist, everything you don't need, and use it and reuse it. Letting go. Breathing in the white mist, breathing out the gray mist. Maybe you can feel your heart at this point, or your pulse, depending on where your hands are on your body. Allowing yourself to feel this rhythm of life inside you. Your body is constantly blending and moving and balancing where it needs to go, moving things around millions of times per second, taking care of you. So now I'd like to ask you to notice some part of you that maybe has gotten your attention today. From this relaxed place, how has your day been? So just bring to mind, or get closer to, whatever part of you has been turned on the most today. Maybe it's work. For a lot of you, it's work or doing something. In IFS, we call those manager parts. Parts of us that have to just get stuff done. So I like to start with managers. Welcome that part of you that's doing and working. Almost like you open the door to the room that you're in, and in comes this friend of yours. In this case, it is the part of you are looking at that has been working. And you're open to this part of you. You're interested in how it looks, how it feels, what it has to say to you. So you may begin to listen to it as though it is a friend, as though it has a voice and can speak to you. For those of you that are new to this in IFS, it can feel a little bit like you're talking to yourself, and that can feel unnerving. Or am I supposed to do that? Yes. That's what we do all the time. Our brain is constantly talking to itself. This is your chance to listen in and participate. So you're open to this part of you that's been working. Maybe you can extend some compassion to it as you imagine it. Does it want to sit down next to you? Is it too burdened or heavy with something, some stress? Maybe it can't move very much. You don't have to change it. You're just there to extend compassion and curiosity to it. And just notice how it responds to you. And you're following that response. Maybe you feel it in your body somewhere. Maybe you begin to notice something that wasn't there a moment ago. That's usually not a coincidence when we work with parts. A pain or a discomfort that was there a minute ago maybe moves or emerges or changes. Headaches that we had a second ago begin to change as we work with parts and acknowledge the depth of what's going on inside of you, this very rich life that is inside of you. So open the camera, open the lens, your lens of view. And maybe this part is telling you what it had to deal with today, and you're there to listen to it. How do you feel towards it? Maybe it's easy to be open to this part of you. It's easy to be compassionate towards it. Or, and this is very common, it's not. And we don't like it. We'd like to close the door on this. We'd like to go away and run away from it. So just notice that feeling also. You are the orchestra conductor. You are the center. And so you may notice you have 2 parts or 3 parts or more. As you begin to focus on one, it becomes clear that you have anger towards the first one. Well, now you've got 2 parts in the room, almost like 2 people. Just let them know there's space for all of them. And all of them are welcome. All of them have a place. The parts that we have inside of us, in your mental activity, in your soul, they're all there for a reason. Many of them trying to protect, trying to help you. So just from your heart for a moment, and you may even just take your hand and put it on your heart. You might just let these parts that you're aware of know that you can see that they're trying to help you. Even if sometimes what they say or what they feel starts to make things hard or heavy, you can see that they're trying to help. And just begin to notice how these parts respond as you begin this journey of befriending, finding them, focusing on them, following them, and ultimately befriending them, getting to know, when did it first start doing this thing for you, whatever it is. It could be a thought. I had parts of me today getting to a doctor to deal with a pain in my shoulder, getting a steroid injection for a torn rotator cuff. Parts of me that didn't want to get that done. Other parts of me wanting to just find some other way around it. Do I have to get that done? Listening, and the whole idea is listening to taking stock of the whole. So as you begin to listen to some parts of you that begin to arise in your consciousness, you have a choice. Do they need to take you over and enact whatever thoughts and beliefs that they have with them? If that was the case today, I would have not gone to the doctor and gotten this treatment. So, I listened to it, felt the feelings, and ultimately was able to step aside and relax, and I was able to go forward. So you may begin to notice these parts can step aside. You might even ask them to. And when you have trust and have spent time with someone, just like a friend, when you know them and really trust them, you can kind of just say to them, hey, I'm busy. Can you come back later? And initially, some of our parts can't respond that way because we've never spoken to them before. We've never identified them and even tried to interact with them. So it takes some time to develop a trust and understanding of where they're coming from, and maybe some things they need to show us and unburden before they can more easily kind of just step aside. And so I'm here for you in this week, every week on Fridays. We're going to be doing this. And I think it's going to be exciting to watch how this process unfolds for you. And I'm really interested to hear from you. Nice to know that I'm not alone. I see we've had about 25 people here today. That's fantastic. I encourage you to share this with others if you think this is helpful. And if you're comfortable sharing or naming an experience that you've had, what's one thing that you've observed about yourself that you're willing to share about this journey for you? And maybe some of you have done this before and you're able to say something about what your experience has been with working with your parts. So as always, kind of when we're ending meditation, I guess I've started to end that as I started rambling a moment ago, but with appreciation, we end with appreciation for the parts that we've encountered. So I guess I'm ending with my appreciation for you for being here and bringing what you have with your parts and your energy. I want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. The Soul of Life podcast comes out every week. We started season 2 today with NASA scientist John Mather. So I talk about a wide range of things on the Soul of Life. A lot of it intersects with psychology, and I'd like to talk about IFS and mindfulness and health. Thank you so much for joining me. Subscribe to the Soul of Life podcast so you don't miss those episodes, and then you'll get reminders also when I'm going live. I'll see you here next Friday. Want to make sure there's any things in the chat that people are saying. Yeah, someone's saying I trained in 2008, worked with traumatized veterans with IFS, EMDR. Glad to join you on Friday. Thanks, Gene. It's nice to see you. So yeah, I'll be here next Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern time. Namaste. Take care.